Good morning. Malam Chesed Beis 38b. We are going through some of the statements of Rabbi Shua ben Levi. The Gemara at the beginning gave us a mnemonic of 8 or so statements that Rabbi Shua ben Levi is going to teach us. And they began with the laws surrounding Birchas Kohanim, which is the subject matter of this section of the Gemara, which we'll remind ourselves comes in the context of Sotah because we're discussing mitzvah shebedibur, mitzvahs of verbalization, which are the ones that have to be done in Hebrew, the original Lashon HaKodesh, and which can be done in any other language. And Sotah has a mitzvah shebedibur. Sotah has the verbalization that the Kohen has to administer the oath to the suspected woman. So from there we went to Birchas Kohanim, which is another mitzvah shebedibur, mitzvah of verbalization, which has to be done in the original language, Lashon HaKodesh. So from there, we got into a number of different laws surrounding the Birchas Kohanim. And Rabbi Shua ben Levi had quite a bit to say about that, about moving your feet, getting started before it's the fact that this is for God's need, not for the Jewish people's need. What was another one? Oh, if you don't, if the Kohen regularly doesn't go up, if a Kohen doesn't go up to do the blessing, he's in violation of 3 positive commandments, statements like that. So from there, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, or the Gemara now quotes Rabbi Shua ben Levi discussing blessing, but not the Birchas Kohanim, but just blessing in general. Rashi actually says we're talking about the bracha of Zimun, the bracha of the grace after meals, and the leader that would do that. That's how Rashi tells us what the next statement from Rabbi Shua ben Levi is referring to. So let's read. V'omar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, you have the place there? The line begins with the word porta. It's about the middle of the page. The line is the word porta, and the second word is v'omar. Yeah. So v'omar Rabbi Shua ben Levi says, Ein noisling koshel bracha, we do not give, quote, a cup of blessing. As just mentioned, Rashi says it's talking about Birchas Kohanim, that is the grace after meals. So the leader would hold a cup, Birchas Hamazon, and that bracha is called the koshel bracha, cup of blessing. It's the cup upon which a blessing has been recited. The truth is, the term koshel bracha is sometimes used for any cup over which a blessing is made. Kiddush, Havdalah, or whatnot. So I'm not sure why Rashi selects specifically Birchas Hamazon, the blessing over food, but perhaps we'll see in a second why that is. Why Rashi assumes that Rabbi Shua ben Levi is specifically talking about who you should choose as the leader of the benching to hold the cup of blessing. So, a noisling kosher bracha levarech, we do not give the blessing of a cup for one to lead the blessing. Ella only l'toiv ayin, someone who has a good eye. A good eye means someone who is generous, rather than a tsar ayin. As we'll see, tsar ayin is like a narrow eye, someone who's very miserly. So you want the blessing to come from a person who is generous of thought, generous in his mind, and generous in giving. And that's perhaps why Rashi assumes we're talking about the Birchas Hamazon, because you want the blessing over food to come from someone who's generous with giving. The basic staple of that is food. Yeah, so there are all kinds of halachas. So I don't see, good point. I don't see a halachic indication here. I'm saying that because I think I mentioned this to you. You'll see in the Gemara, if you're looking at my screen, you'll see me highlight it there. You'll see little letters that look like this. And if you can see, little yud there, little chaf there. So those little letters there indicate to you to look on the margin where it tells you where in the Code of Jewish Law you can find the law that's being cited here in the Gemara. So I don't see such a little letter in this statement here of Rabbi Shua ben Levi about giving a generous person to lead the benching. So I don't know if this is quoted in any Jewish book of law because, like you're saying, there are all kinds of laws about who you give the honors of leading the benching. The prerogative is first the host, Kohen, a Levi, a scholar, and what to do if there's a scholar and a Kohen. What if the Kohen is also a scholar, but not as great as a scholar as the original? There's all kinds of laws and the whole hierarchy about who you give the blessing to. So perhaps that's why this is not quoted as a halachic statement. But nonetheless, the message he's relaying still remains the same, that you want to have someone who's generous in his thinking lead the benching. You're thanking Hashem for food. You don't have someone who in his heart is stingy of food. I'm stressing in the heart more than just in the giving, as we'll see in a moment, actually. So again, halachically speaking, there's a hierarchy, but the message he's relaying is still the same. Because we're going to see in a minute, actually, that you shouldn't find yourself at a host who's miserly. We'll see. Okay, so this is what he says. You should only give the blessing, the honors of leading the benching to someone who is generous. Toiv ayin, generous eye. I'm going to stress this again. He's talking about someone's character, not just his behavior. And he doesn't say only give to someone who gives a lot of tzedakah. There are terms like that. Nice nate tzedakah. There's different terms you can use in the Gemara to describe people who give money or give charity. Toiv ayin is a reference to his thinking. It's mentioned in Pirkei Avos, in the list of things that are good character, good nature. It's ayin toiva, good eye. Someone who's generous with his giving. A good eye is someone who look at someone else and see them doing well, the kinds of people who are happy for them. The generous spirit. Yeah, Shem Tov is a similar thing. Shem Tov is in the reverse. People look at you with a Shem Tov. And Ayin Tov is you looking at others with an Ayin Tov. Like you look at other people and you have a good eye. You enjoy people's successes. You enjoy watching people. There are hosts you go to and they get joy out of watching you enjoy the food they served you. People, it's a type of eye in there, good eye. Those are the kinds of people you want them to lead the benching. Because they have that generous nature. And in their blessing is all that generosity. Especially since the whole Berachas Hamazon is thanking God for sustenance. So you want someone whose intention is give a lot of sustenance, not someone who's tight about his giving, even giving to himself. He's just sar ayin, very narrow-minded, literally. That would be the English term we use today. Okay, Shnemer, as the verse reads, Toiv ayin hu yivayrach. The one who is good-eyed, he literally means is blessed. Because he's given of his bread to the poor. That's the verse. So it says Rabbi Shubal maybe, Al tikri yivayrach. Don't just read it as he is blessed, El yivarech, but he shall bless. So there's a dual meaning in the verse. The one who's good-natured is himself blessed because he gives to the poor. He gives bread to the poor. Okay, so that's a simple statement of you give charity, Hashem provides. But this idea of who yivarech, he is blessed, says Rabbi Shimon Levi should also be read who yivarech, that he blesses. As if to say, because he's got a good nature and wants others to get. So when he leaves the blessing, asking Hashem to give others, he does so hoping that they're going to get in abundance. As opposed to someone who's narrow-minded, that when he gives a blessing that someone else should get, he does so with, he doesn't deserve as much. Okay, give him. It's not the kind of guy you want giving a blessing. You want someone who's open, broad, and just wants the blessings to flow. Rabbi Levi says even further that this attitude of giving and of being a giving-minded person, being an open-minded person in the sense that you want others to succeed, being ayin tov, having a good eye, is so powerful that it actually affects the world and nature around us. Namely, Menayin says Rabbi Levi, how do we know? Shafilu oifes, even the birds, makirin can recognize, sarei ayin, those who are narrow-minded and miserly. They won't even eat from the food they put out. Shenemar, as the verse reads. Okay, now I'm going to go to the text on the side here and read the actual text from Proverbs. Wait, which one is it? This one.
What's that statement? Even the birds?
Even the birds can recognize someone who's miserly. Sarah ayin, someone who's got a narrow eye, who doesn't like to give up on their stuff, doesn't like to give away, doesn't like someone who's narrow, doesn't like when other people get. Some people like that. Present company excluded, Baruch Hashem. But there are people that exist out there in the ether who, I don't know how many, I don't want to cast any judgment, but there are people like this that just are very, there's an old joke. It's a joke, and I have license to say it because I'm both Russian and Hungarian in my stock. The joke goes that there's a Russian neighbor, three neighbors. One's Russian, one's Polish, and one's Hungarian, Jewish, obviously. And they all have the same size house, and they all own one cow. And one day, the Polish guy gets two cows, and it expands his house and gets 2 bedrooms in the house. So the Hungarian says, "What, you think this guy's special because he has 2 cows and 3 bedrooms? Watch, you're going to see. I'm going to get 3 cows and 4 bedrooms." And the Russian says, "You think this guy's special that he has 2 cows and 2 bedrooms? You're going to see his cows are going to die and his bedroom's going to burn down." It's a joke about the personalities of resenting other people's successes. It's a nature like this, where it comes from a jealousy, it comes from a pettiness. That's the right word, pettiness. It's a pettiness where the other guy's doing well, it annoys them. So when they give someone charity, they give. Okay, the guy twisted my arm, so he wants it. Okay, I'll give him something. He invited me to his house. I have to invite him back. Okay, fine, I'll invite him, but let's just get this meal over with, and we won't pick out our nicest wine because we don't want to waste it on these guests. That kind of person. So the birds recognize that kind of person. So when this guy puts out bait, food to trap birds, the birds don't eat it because they can recognize that this guy's stingy. He doesn't want to give away the bread that he's giving to the birds to catch them. He doesn't even want to do that. So this is the verse he's quoting. It's a verse in Proverbs, Mishlei, chapter, was it 23? Oh, chapter 1 of Mishlei, verse 17. So Mishlei, is a book of King Solomon's wisdom, and it's written to his son. So the verse keeps on saying, my son, Bani. So the verse earlier is talking about such people who are very tight and stingy in nature. And he says here, where is it? No, earlier he says, my son, do not go away with them. Restrain your foot from their path, for their foot run evil, and they hasten to shed blood. The kinds of people who are looking for negativity, not looking for the good in life. And then the verse reads, for their net is scattered without cause, in the eyes of all winged fowl, meaning they waste their time spreading out their nets and putting bait for the birds, because even the birds don't eat their stuff because they're so stingy. So it goes so far.
That's not good feed.
Even the birds will only eat when they feel that the host giving them the food wants to actually give them the food. Whereas this guy is so he's so reluctant to give away his food. Okay, I'll put it out there because I'm ready to catch the bird in exchange. The bird says, no, thank you. Have a nice day, and flies to eat someone else's food. That's how far it goes. That's the literal level. Of course, the floor is open to understanding a little deeper. What does this mean? The birds, and why is it that birds are the symbol of that which recognize stinginess and tight of mind? And perhaps the reason is, as we learn in, chapter 39 and 40 in Tanya, 38, 39, 40, where the Alter discusses love and fear of Hashem as being wings to the body of the mitzvah. Right? The body is the act of the mitzvah, that's the body of the bird. And the wings are the love and fear, which take that mitzvah and make it soar up to the heavens. It spiritualizes it. Right? The act of a mitzvah is a physical act. It's a very dry act. So it exists down on this earth. But then when you attach 2 wings, you have to have specifically 2 wings, both love and fear of Hashem as the 2 wings, then it raises that physicalized thing and raises it to a spiritual height, right? I inject some spirituality into the mitzvah by putting wings on. And the Alter there, this analogy comes from earlier in Kabbalah, but the Alter explains even further that in halacha, a bird whose wings don't work are still kosher. It's actually Rambam the last few days, laws of treifa, the laws of animals that are injured in their lifetime, rendering it unkosher, even if it goes through kosher slaughter. So lacking wings doesn't disqualify the animal because the body of the animal is still intact. So a person does a mitzvah without love and fear of Hashem. The mitzvah is not disqualified because it's still a mitzvah. The body of the act was done, but it lacks spiritualization. It lacks living up to its full potential, like a bird without wings, right? So perhaps there's like an indication here of like we're talking about an emotional sense of someone who's broad-minded, meaning two people both are giving, but one person is giving with a tsar ayin, with a narrow eye, is giving reluctantly, and one person is giving with a tov ayin, one person is giving with a broad eye, with an open eye, happily giving. So the act of giving may be there in both cases. What's lacking is the emotional element of investor in that giving, and thus the symbol of the bird, who is the symbol of the spiritualized action, is the one that says, I can see that your act is lacking spirituality. I'm not here. I'm going somewhere else. In fact, do we have a sitter there with the English translation?
Sure.
So I want to show you something interesting.
It's like a function of intent.
Exactly. It's a function of intent. Exactly right. And the bird is a symbol of intent, especially the verse refers to them as Bal Kanaf. All the, what was the words in the verse? The net is scattered without cause in the eyes of all winged fowl, not just in the eyes of the birds, but a winged fowl, emphasizing the wings as the symbol of, in other words, you have birds that aren't winged. Those aren't the ones that care, because the wingless birds are the ones who are just dry act to begin with. Okay, so you gave me, they'll take. But the winged birds, representing the one whose actions are more spiritualized, he can sense in the other person's action that it's lacking a proper spiritualization, it's lacking an intention, it's lacking a toiv ayin, it's lacking a broad eye. So with that, I want to share something that occurred to me a few years ago during COVID. And I had more time to sit at home and learn. I was learning Pirkei Avos more in depth on Shabbos afternoon, and something occurred to me in Pirkei Avos. I want to share with you the thought. I think it's a nice part, and I think it's true. I think it's the right part. Yeah. In thinking, not just in giving. You know, people can give, but they do so reluctantly. Okay, so the Mishnah, I think it's in Perek Hey. 1 second. One second, Perek Hey. Yes. Okay, Mishnah 13 in Perek Hey reads like this. There are 4 types amongst those who give charity. The first, one who wishes to give, but that others should not. So he begrudges others. Actually, the language here is used, ayin ra, he has a bad eye. He's begrudging, right? So one who gives, but wishes that others should not give. 2, that others should give, and he should not. See, so he doesn't want to give, but he wants others to give. So he begrudges himself. Himself, he's tight. He has a bad eye for himself. Number 3, that he should give, and others should too. This is the chassid. He has a broad mind. He wants to give, and he wants others to give. 3, that he should not give, nor should others. He didn't want to give, nor does he want others to give. This is a wicked person who's completely a tight eye on himself and a tight eye on someone else. Okay, so if you read the Mishnah quickly, you would think the last guy isn't giving any charity. Now there's the second to last guy or the third to last guy. He's not giving, but he wants others to give, or he's not giving, doesn't want others to give. But if you look closely at the Mishnah writes at the beginning, there are 4 types amongst those who give charity, meaning all 4 of these people are giving. It's a question of intent and how they give. And it's occurred to me, based on another teaching that the Rabbi refers to in one of the other Mishnahs here, and specifically, the Rabbi would always say that Pirkei Avos is beyond the letter of the law. So if what the Mishnah says seems to you to be Jewish law, then you have to dig deeper and find why it's beyond the letter of the law. So I'm looking at this Mishnah and I said, 1 second, by Jewish law you have to give. So why is it listing someone who doesn't give? Then it occurred to me, he is giving. The Mishnah opens up. There are 4 types amongst those who give charity. They're all for giving. The question is, when they give, how do they give? So one person gives happily, but he doesn't want anybody else to get the credit. So he begrudges others. There are others that say, look, the yeshiva's getting money anyway. I have to give also. Why are you harassing me? You just got $1 million donation. Why are you bothering me? Okay, fine. You need another money. Okay, so I'll give you something. He's begrudging his own giving. Not that he's not giving, he is giving. And then the last guy thinks nobody should be giving. Everybody should keep the money for themselves. You're twisting my arm. Okay, fine, I'll give you. You're twisting other guys' arm also. So they're all giving, but it's a question of exactly. I think the same thing is true in our Gemara here. It's not talking about people who aren't giving or who aren't serving. The guy is spreading out food for the birds, but they're not taking because he's begrudging in his giving.
The fourth one was somebody who gives.
He doesn't want to give. No, there's one other. The third one was the chassid, I think, was the third one. I don't remember the order.
Okay.
I don't remember the order, but one of them is happily giving and is excited and proud when other people give too. That's the broad-eyed, completely understands. So, the other guy giving and taking credit for giving doesn't take away from my giving. Let's celebrate that guy's giving and his credit, right? The same thing is true in business. You have lots of people who are successful in business. You four people that are successful, but one guy is happy for someone else's success. Everybody has got. It's not just about not just about the giving, but the manner in which you give. I think that's what's happening here. Maybe that's the symbolism of the bird, the winged fowl, the birds, that they symbolize an emotional action, not just a dry action. So it's not just about the giving, but is there like intent? Is there generosity in the giving? Is there a broadness? Is there an openness? Is there, not just the weight, not just the giving itself, but the manner in which you give. Now, having said that, and the next statement will prove what I'm trying to say, because the next statement is going to be someone who is giving, clearly is giving, but nonetheless is tight of nature. And that's why this is the main indication for why I'm concluding that we're talking about people who give, but the manner in which they give is lacking. They're lacking that broadness, that openness. So I'm Rabbi Shubha Levi. Rabbi Shubha Levi further stated, listen to this. This is very, very strong. And I have some thoughts about it, but I'm going to open the floor. Anyone who enjoys and takes from someone who is tight in their giving, who's a narrow-minded person in his giving. So he's giving, right? Because otherwise, how are you enjoying from him? So anyone who enjoys from this person, over balav, transgresses violates a injunction of the verse. So if someone offers you, but the person doesn't want to give, Rabbi Shubha Levi saying, don't take. And taking, you're in violation of a command. You're in violation of a verse. So this is the indication to me that we're talking about someone who's giving. Because otherwise, if tsar ayin, if someone who's narrow-eyed, if someone who's not giving, then how would you ever have the opportunity to violate this command? Meaning the person is giving, but you sense that he's a tsar ayin. You're a winged bird. You have that sensitivity, and you can sense that he's not giving willingly. Says Rabbi Shubha Levi, don't take. And if you take, you're in violation of a verse. Isn't that incredible?
What's the verse?
So let's read the verse. It's again a verse in Proverbs. It's not a biblical commandment, even though he uses the word lav. Lav meaning negative commandment, but it's not one of the 613 because it's in Proverbs. It's not the verse reads like this. It's verse 6 and 7 in chapter 23 of Proverbs. And the verse reads, interestingly enough, the verse before also discusses wings. Should you blink your eyes at it, it is not there. For it will make wings for itself like the eagle, and it will fly towards the heavens. Interestingly enough. Yeah, he's talking about materialistic wealth. The verse before that reads, verse 3 reads, do not desire delicacies, for its bread is a lie. Do not weary yourself to grow rich. Cease from your own understanding. Stop thinking that you're going to get all rich and everything. Should you blink your eyes at it, and the money's gone. For it will make wings for itself like an eagle and fly towards the heavens. It's going to be gone.
So we have to be like the birds.
Yeah. So it says exactly, yes, to indicate where the money's coming from, and is it being given to you wholeheartedly. So the verse reads, verse 6, do not dine upon the bread of a stingy person. Ra'ayin, that word, the bad eye. Someone who's stingy, don't eat from his food. He's doing you a favor in eating, and for the rest of your life, he's going to remind you, remember I gave you this, that, and the other? Don't take from that guy. Right? Do not dine upon the bread of a stingy person, and do not desire delicacies. For it as though it poured gall into his friend, so is he.
There's another expression. This is raw iron. What was the other one?
Sar ayin. Sar means tight, ra means bad. Sar.
Sorry.
Like tight, like meitzar. Yeah, like tight.
Fine. Okay.
Yeah, tight. Bad or tight. So here, this is the word the Gemara cites to, which I was share with you in a moment. So the verse reads in the English, it's translated here. For as though it poured gal into his friend, so is he. He will tell you to eat and drink, but his heart is not with you.
For what? God?
I'm not sure.
I think that's, you mean like from the gallbladder?
No, I think he means like tenacity, like chutzpah.
Oh,
I think that's what it means.
not from the organ.
I don't think so.
That's like bile.
Yeah, kikumay sa'ar b'nafshay.
I was thinking bile.
No, I think he.
Yeah.
I think it means like let's see if we can find Rashi here. But I think it means. Let's see how Rashi translates it in the verse here. For it is like gal, sar. The sar is vowelized half with patach and half with the kametz, and the accent is at the end of the word. Therefore, it is a verb and not a noun. For word and noun, it would be vowelized completely with a patach, okay? And the accent would be at the beginning of the word, like sar in scriptures. Its meaning is that as though this food poured gal into the soul of the stingy man.
It sounds like.
Oh, it's gal. It means like chutzpah.
And it says in English, bold and imprudent behavior.
Right, there you go. It's chutzpah. That's what I meant, like gal. Like, where did you get the gal? It seems like it's pouring chutzpah into himself. Yeah.
Golf, like with the comments, with the comments.
Yeah, so he's pouring gal into himself. Okay, so it says the Gemara like this.
Harming the recipient.
Yes, but the Gemara does still, yes. But Rashi here translates it actually differently. Okay, so here Rashi actually gives two translations. One, like we just read, that he's pouring chutzpah into himself. So it's bad for himself too. Maybe that's why you shouldn't be eating from him, because it's actually bad for him too. The other translation Rashi gives here is that he's constant. The word shar coming from the word not chutzpah, but from the word shir, which is measure. He's constantly evaluating within himself. Am I giving enough? Am I giving him too much? Maybe I should give him a little less. He's not just open and giving. And if that's the kind of person he is, don't touch him. Anyway, so what I want to put to you is to think about is, I mean, ordinarily we say give, and you train yourself to let go. So maybe taking from him is a favor, training him and helping him to actually let go, to give. But here the Gemara is saying, no, don't take it from him, because as you were learning, it's actually bad for him. So I think it's something we should think about a little bit more and develop this a bit more. Like, what does this mean that you shouldn't be taking from someone who's not happily giving? Shouldn't you? Isn't it helpful to him to let him learn, teach him to let go? So that's one thing I was thinking about. That like he'll remind you forever and ever that.
Maybe you're helping him by not taking, because he'll have to reevaluate.
So that's what I was thinking also.
Contemplate
And if nobody takes from him,
what's happening here, and
if nobody takes from him, he'll learn that he's not part of the reciprocity of the community, and he has to change his attitude if he wants to be part of that. That's another thing I was thinking about. That in the short term, you're taking from him very nice, but in the long term, you're just entrenching this negative thinking.
not helping.
Yeah, there's an expression Rashi quoted elsewhere. We say to the bee, I don't want your honey, I don't want your sting.
I'm learning a lot from the animals.
Don't give me your honey and don't give me your sting. Like you can do me a whole favor, you're gonna give me your honey and then it's gonna be stinging me. Learn to let go of the sting, and then we'll take your honey happily. That's the expression. Anyway, so it's very, very deep ideas. We'll just conclude here. Yitzchak says, actually, you violate two negative statements in the verse, because the verse has a double expression there. The verse has double expression to describe not to take from him. So it's not just one violation by taking from someone who's stingy, but actually two violations. Two violations, two negatives. But again, it's not biblical negatives, but it's two negative expressions in the verse that tell you not to do this. Yeah, two negative statements which say not to do this. Sorry?
Bragging is certainly not a virtue.
No, definitely not. Okay, tomorrow, God willing, we get to more statements from Rabbi Shub and Levi about the person who's narrow-minded.
What are the spiritual, if we know, what are the spiritual consequences for a recipient to receive from a person who gives begrudgingly? Is there any? Well,
I don't see. You have to go back to the verses and see if there's more. You will vomit out your morsel that you ate, and you will lose your sweet words. Do not speak into the ears of fool. Okay, so there's the answer. What's the thing? You will vomit it out. Whatever you give will just come right out. You're not going to be interested in it. And you will lose your sweet words, meaning it'll be even worse.
The recipient.
Yeah. The next verse, verse 8, says if you take from this person, you'll end up regurgitating it, plus lose your sweet words. Rashi writes, the gratitude that you expressed, you extended, and speak to him tender words, you lost everything.
Big deal.
Yeah, in other words, this person's a pariah and will just suck everything he's given to you, but he ends up sucking out of you.
Better to give and keep quiet.
Good deal, that's right.
Reminds me of the story that takes place in Texas, in a bar in Texas. There's three big Texans sitting at the table, and a little Jew. And one Texan says, I got a big ranch.